So I was going to say a thing that I've talked about too much, arguably, and that would be the Iconics winning the tag titles at WrestleMania 35. My first WrestleMania, arguably the best moment for the women's tag titles. I can't remember who held them before the Iconics, but it didn't really matter at that point. But I will say, yes, first WrestleMania and all that, amazing moment, surprise, my favourites, obviously. But like, that was a night or a weekend where what built to me losing my voice before Monday Night Raw even happened. You had Cole Gargano obviously at TakeOver, Seth beating Brock in the opener, you had that, you had Kofi beating Bryan, Becky Lynch, we got all the things we wanted at WrestleMania 35. So instead, I'm going to talk about a moment that is going to live with me forever. And it'll live with us forever because, well, I've got the footage of it, which I'll show in a second. But it has to be Cody Rhodes' return, WrestleMania 38. Look, surprises are a rarity within wrestling. They try and get sold as oh, what a big shock. But a lot of the time, you sort of go, it's probably going to be this, isn't it? Or, especially in the job that we have, we just sort of find out about it and sometimes we report it, sometimes we can't or whatever. But like, Cody Rhodes at 38, we didn't know for sure. Like, it's like on your birthday, there's a big box with a big bow on it and people say, that's your big present this year. And it was like, it's going to be potentially Cody or Shane. It's like, it could be a Lamborghini or a big bag of shit. And we got Cody Rhodes back in WWE, jumping from AEW, shocking everybody. Yes, there was rumors and speculation. It wasn't a complete surprise, but it was. It happened, and it was just he had the wrestling as more than one royal family, which is weird anyway that they didn't go. I think Def Rebel should probably make some new theme for you for this one. It's like he's there, he's got the neck tat, he's immediately facing Seth. The match itself was amazing, and obviously what a storied history he's had at WrestleMania since then. And they've also brought him in and realised that he's a star now. He's a different person than when they left. It was just a real, and like your brain's going, but wait a second, now he can face so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and if he's gonna get this sort of, big pomp and ceremony for his arrival, he's gonna shake up the whole picture. But like, it's personified in the video I'm about to show you by the fact that the music hits, you and I, as far as I remember, are jumping around for joy, and we are shouting so much that, I think I've mentioned this before, I forgot to breathe. For a split second, you're like, yeah! And I think it might be after the video shuts off. I had a little sit down because I thought, oh, that's a big old head rush. You need to really pace yourself here, because I just lost all sense in that moment. It was amazing. It will live with me forever. And if you want evidence of it, editor, roll the clip.
Well, Will One, like the Fed, I'm a big believer in show don't tell when it comes to the best storytelling. So why don't we all just take a quick look?
What? Oh! No way! Yeah!
Oh my God!
He's back! He's back!
Oh, we only going to blackout. Just to elaborate slightly on that great night, and as you could see there, I wasn't just sat next to the only wrestling journalist in the game who had kind of told me for weeks and weeks and weeks that this was happening.
Who could have called it?
Well, only you, brother. Which illustrates just how exciting that moment was, even though, as you could tell by my face, I was fully in on the surprise and definitely knew it was happening. What this was more than just a celebration of, realistically, like my favourite pro wrestler of this era making a return to my favourite promotion in what was effectively my favourite promotion's favourite era in 23 years. So a lot of favourites on top of favourites on top of favourites there. It was not just all of those incredible things and the shock and amazement and the joy that came with all of that, as so many of us shared, and then was illustrated, in fact, on an episode of Monday Night Raw that weirdly did not feature the clip that you just seen. It was that it had happened at all. Just months earlier, I'd seen CM Punk have a solid 3.5-star match in Wembley Stadium and steal the show, but obviously circumstances meant that he could no longer continue to remain in AEW. And with that came not just the fear that CM Punk was gone from All Elite Wrestling, but the fear that he was maybe gone from the North American mainstream. There were plenty of people that believed, with very good reason, that the door was permanently slammed shut to CM Punk in WWE. And I think the fact that he came back through was evidence that Triple H was not just willing to follow his own long-term ideas through, to not just get his own method of storytelling in WWE as he had done since sort of like the second half of 2022, but to also take the bold and necessary steps you need to make in order to continue that momentum. We'll all have our different opinions on this WWE boom that we currently sit in, when indeed the boom is eventually past. Mine feels already in my guts like 2022, 50% absolutely goated. 2024, pretty great, but with little signs that maybe he's running out of fresh stories. I'd love to be proven wrong, by the way. Just a gut feeling I've got. 2023, perfect no notes before CM Punk's music even hit at War Games, and yet when it did, oh my god, he's just improved upon perfection. The Punk appeared on the Raw afterwards with his time cut, almost as if to say, welcome back, Phil. Remember how it goes? And then as all the doubters and the naysayers and the people that don't like CM Punk because it's important for the cult of personality to have a generation of people also despise him just as much as they love him, he then goes on a December edition of SmackDown and scorches the entire earth, sets about 50 dream matches up and then books the Royal Rumble by his fucking self. So the excitement that you had in November was completely justified by December, and going into January he's worked, ooh, one match, and has he been the most exciting character in pro wrestling? I think so, because that's the Punker. He was worth the money, he was worth the investment, he was worth the daft reactions that myself and you gave at that night in November. And there have been a million moments that have set my soul on fire, dating back to when I was a child, hence why I still watch and love this. But as a jaded, then 38-year-old, it's harder to summon them on a more regular basis. I may as well have been 5 all over again when that psh psh hit.
Okay, I have a confession to make now, I guess. My one for this is the invasion angle. No, really, quite genuinely. It comes from a place of ignorance, I guess, growing up at the time. I didn't know what WCW, well, I knew what WCW was. I knew who some of the stars were, but I never was able to see the show. So when the invasion angle happened, I didn't necessarily get so much that these weren't the big stars that we were waiting for. And also, it's worth saying that at the time, this was around the time for me where I had, you know, the moment when you get smartened up to the business, if you want to call it that. But I was still heavily invested at the same time, so I knew it wasn't real. Of course it wasn't real. Why would the WWE put their, you know, ownership on the line, essentially, in a wrestling match? Makes no sense, but I was still heavily invested in the storyline, and to me the invasion angle wasn't necessarily about the lack of Goldberg and Sting, which probably I was aware. I was like, that's a little odd, maybe they're coming later. But I was heavily invested in Heyman being a slime ball and Steph and all this stuff against the WWE. Austin turning to the invasion, and I was incensed. Why would Austin turn his back on the WWE fans and all that stuff? So Survivor Series 2001, I think that's the year, right? Was a very big event for me. Like, it's a memorable moment in my fandom. Even though, yes, all of us would do the invasion angle differently, and me too included, I would change it if I could. At the time, it was at that perfect timing for me as a fan where I was super invested. I kind of knew it was predetermined, but it's something about it. I was scrawling in notebooks, screw you Austin, and all this stuff. What a stupid mark. But hey, I had to come on here and be honest, so the invasion angle. It sucks now, but at the time I was like, oh my god!
Alright, so I feel like I need to caveat this one, because everyone else in this is going to have these like all-time amazing like WWE like wrestling moments that have like stand out, and you can look at it on a piece of paper and go, yeah, I can see why they're talking about that. Mine isn't exactly that, because it's The Rock beating John Cena at WrestleMania 28, which didn't exactly go down as like one of the biggest moments in wrestling history, but for me, I had a bloody great time. It was my first ever WrestleMania. So we were going there. It was my first time in America as well, because we like tied it into this big holiday. So it was like sort of fresh out of university, going off like lads on tour kind of thing, touring around America, ending it in Miami for WrestleMania, and just going to that show. First time ever in WrestleMania, like I said. The whole sort of build up to everything, like at that point we still thought it was going to be once in a lifetime. We didn't know that yet. We thoroughly expected it to be John Cena wins, because it was firmly in the era of John Cena wins, lol. And sort of the build up to the match, by the time that finish came and The Rock finally actually beat John Cena in it was so unexpected as a moment, and like nobody in that audience seemed to think that that was actually going to happen. And we were like literally jumping for joy. It was so dumb. I should also caveat that we were quite drunk by this as well. But in terms of like a personal moment that has massively stood out in sort of my love of wrestling, it's the first ever WrestleMania. Huge match, like big time feel for a main event for it as well, with like Rock and John Cena, like worlds collide kind of thing. And then you get the unexpected win of The Rock, like actually pinning Cena at the end of it. It was just all absolutely beautiful and all the exact reason why I love wrestling.
Yeah.
So this one's pretty easy for me, like wrestling moments that set your soul on fire. For me, the one that it just springs straight to mind is Edge's Royal Rumble return. It was unbelievable. It was one of my absolute all-timer favorite moments of being a wrestling fan. I get chills. I genuinely get chills thinking about it because it was just so impossible at one point. Like, this guy had it all, the wrestling world taken away from him because of an injury and all the rest of it, and just seeing him strut out, the music, not even that, I'm jumping ahead here, just the music, when the music hit and the crowd went absolutely wild. We were doing a stream at the time, we lost our minds, we were like, no, this has got to be a swerve, it's got to be something, this can't be right. And then seeing him just sprint out of the steam, and I get a bit like emotional thinking about it, because just seeing him come out and just being like, rah, his soul was on fire. But then just taking that moment to just drink it all in and just look around, and you could see the emotion all over his face, this, oh my God, I'm doing it. That thing that I never thought I'd do again, I am here. I'm in front of everyone, they scream, I'm in a stadium. It's what wrestling's all about. It's these moments that you can't even like have them on fantasy booking lists or anything like that, because they just seem so impossible to do in the first place. And it's just like when they happen, you're like, I'm stunned. You've caught me off guard. My soul has been exposed to whatever this is. And it was in a weird way, it was probably the peak of his like WWE return, which is absolutely fine because it's one of those all-timer moments that most wrestlers never get. They never get in their entire careers, and Edge got it there. And I will cherish it. I will cherish it forever. I'm sure he obviously will cherish it forever as well, and a lot of other fans will as well. But it was just, words can't really describe it, which is a bit crap for this kind of video. But yeah, it set my soul on fire. You can't really put into words how moving and raw all that was. So for me, that's the moment that just made my soul explode.
My favorite period of professional wrestling lasted all of a month.
Oh.
And it was February 2020.
Yeah!
In All Elite Wrestling. That build to Revolution 2020 was unbelievably special. I was completely and utterly locked in to the Elite build, and I think it was so great and absorbing because I don't think it's really worked subsequent to this, but genuinely with Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and the Young Bucks, that idea of shades of grey, this, potentially wrong idea that we could be post-babyface, post-heel. That was the best exploration of it I've ever seen, to the point where I was so invested in the characters and wondering who would turn, if there would even be a full, complete turn, who's got the right sort of mentality here, who's in the right in terms of the various plot developments that drove the Elite apart. And I was just in love with Hangman Page. I was absolutely in love with Hangman Page, as I think a lot of AEW fans were. I mean, to this day, he still gets called the main character. I think there was such a risk that he would be sort of like a maudlin sad sack, because, it was a different kind of babyface. He had his self-doubts, anxiety issues. They did such a great job of making him seem like a cool, funny guy who you'd kind of want to hang around with and want the best for. Like when he was drinking his pitchers of beer, when he was like, hold my beer. He was just like a fun, irreverent guy at the same time as a relatable dude who suffered from mental health problems, which I think many of us do. So I was always thinking, I hope it's Hangman. I suspect it's Hangman. It's pretty much Hangman, but is it definitely Hangman? I want it to be Hangman. Days before Revolution 2020, Kenny Omega defeated Pac in an excellent Iron Man match. Again, he got this on free television. It was such a novelty, it was so incredible. In overtime of that match, he used Kota Ibushi's Kamigoye to get the job done. And I'm thinking, that's funny, he didn't go for the buckshot. You still don't really think Hangman Page is elite, which is what Hangman's entire problem was. That was the crux that drove the entire storyline. You don't think Hangman's elite, and Hangman doesn't either, so this long chase can begin.
and then the heel turn happens and Full Gear 2021 happens. But before that happens, at Revolution 2020, the best tag team match I've ever seen to this day, it's absolutely unbelievable. Kenny Omega does the spot where the Young Bucks hit the Golden Trigger, subsequently renamed BTE Trigger, but it's his and again Ibushi's old tag team finish. Kenny Omega kicks out at 1. Kenny Omega, right, is such a genius that he kicks out at 1 in the ultimate in the moment babyface fire spot. It lights up the entire arena, and you think, that's your heel turn. You've just told Hangman Page you care more about your old partner than your current one, and you've done the babyface spot of like the year, and it underscores that in fact you're actually the heel, negging, picking at Hangman Page's psyche all along. Like the use of subtext with a wrestling move, like obscuring a heel turn or a foreshadowing of a heel turn with an all-time babyface spot and pop. But that's Kenny Omega for you. But the actual moment that set my soul on fire in that match, and I was like, oh, come on. It's Hangman, he's the one. He uses the one-winged angel. Like in contrast to that, to just show you, I'm the babyface here. I'm the one who, you know, is with my friends, ride or die. I believe in my partner, and I'm the noble, upstanding guy. And I was like, I got my heart broken on a babyface spot, and I got my head exploded and soul on fire from a heel spot. It was just a better time.
You had to be there.
A better goddamn time than it is right now. I miss it so much. Come back, Kenny Omega, man.
We all do.
The moment that set my bubble boiling, whatever the question was, is you have to go back to the 90s when I was like a fetus rolling around the floor trying to understand English. But it is, of course, when we had on Raw, which was pretty cool at the time, you didn't see many world title changes, Mankind versus The Rock, and DX were in Mankind's corner and the Corporation were in The Rock's corner. It was like, oh my gosh, nobody is ever going to be able to help Mick Foley against these insurmountable odds. When the glass breaks, Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out. He hits Dwayne Johnson, as we now know him, with the most hideous chair shot you've ever seen, which nobody would do today. And he grabs Mankind and he throws him over the Rock, and the referee goes 1, 2, 3. And from the moment Steve Austin's music starts playing to the moment Raw goes off air, it is just one sustained cheer. Now listen, I love a pop in wrestling, and there are people today getting incredible pops in pro wrestling. It's the sustainability, and I actually did a tweet about this, whatever the hell we're calling it, a post the other day, because it just randomly came up on my timeline. And you forget how, I'm going to use the annoying word, you forget how majestic it is, how cool it is, how goosebumpy it is, because the fun thing to do, as I stumble over my words, is to pick out people in the crowd and just watch one person, and you see their soul being set on fire too, because they're jumping and they're cheering. And it's not like a gut reaction where you get, you know, the first 3 or 4 seconds, you're like, oh my gosh, it's happening. Then you move into, I'm going to keep cheering because it's Steve Austin. And then you must get to a point you're like, well, I should stop now, but you know what, I'm having such a good time that I'm going to keep going, and then Raw is done. So it is arguably the loudest pop in history. Again, I'm sure people will be able to present evidence to the contrary, but I've never stumbled across it and not thought this is one of the best things that I've ever seen in wrestling. And it does something to my tum-tum. It definitely makes it warm and fuzzy, but it also reminds me why I love pro wrestling to begin with, which is hyperbole to say the least, but it's just awesome, and it's just the best. And what I hate is people see that and go, oh, we're never going to get moments like that again. Well, I say poppycock, right? I say that we are getting moments like that, and also that comparison is the thief of joy, right? It steals your joy away, because rather than just enjoy this moment, you're then looking for another moment. I mean, there have been ones in recent memory. CM Punk has been responsible for a lot of them, but you're never going to be able to replicate that specific one. Other people will have their own, but that one, in terms of where I was in my life and how I felt about wrestling and what was going on in other aspects of my childhood, it just came along at the right time. And if you haven't seen it, as I break the fourth wall and talk to the camera, you should go and watch it today. I can't actually remember. I think it's 1999. It must be early 1999, and then Mankind must win it back at the lose it at the Royal Rumble. It must be building to that one, the tale of the horrific chair. Talking about chair shots, the ones that go out of control. But yeah, it's awesome, and it always will be awesome. And I'll be a 90-year-old man if I'm lucky to live that long, and I'll still be watching this and just going, man, that is just the best thing that I've ever seen in my life. And don't forget, every year that I continue to say that is another nod in its direction, because hopefully I'm experiencing more stuff in my life. Otherwise, what the flub am I doing?
WrestleMania 8, it's the return of the Ultimate Warrior. Yes, as a kid, I was a Bret Hart guy. It was the British Bulldog. It was Macho Man Randy Savage. It was Luke Skywalker. And yes, it was the Ultimate Warrior. I should prefix this by by saying, yes, in later life, Warrior would show himself to be a total trash human being, but as a kid, the Ultimate Warrior couldn't not grab your attention. The energy, the colors, the face paint, the tassels, that awesome entrance theme. And at this point, Warrior had not been seen since SummerSlam 1991, which obviously was suspended shortly after for holding up the company, essentially. And as somebody who was never a Hulkamaniac, the Ultimate Warrior was just a perfect alternative. The main event of WrestleMania 8, of course, was Hulk Hogan versus Sid Justice, leaving poor Randy Savage and Ric Flair to fight for the world title in the middle of the card. That match was excellent, of course it was. But Hogan had to Hogan, which meant Hogan had to main event, which was the first WrestleMania where the world champion or world title wasn't in the main event spot. Sid, at this point, Sid Justice was a beast, so WWF didn't want to beat him. They also didn't want to beat Hulk Hogan, and so the finish was supposed to be a run-in from Papa Shango to cause the DQ Hogan win. Instead, Papa Shango was famously late getting to the ring, meaning Sid kicked out of the leg drop, Harvey Whippleman got involved, it still ended up in a DQ for Hogan, and then you had Sid and Papa Shango 2-on-1 beatdown on the Hulkster. And then that music hit, yes, sprinted down the long Huser Dome entranceway. The Ultimate Warrior, it was just, yeah, little me popped ridiculous. This was just, obviously this was a total surprise, obviously was not smart to the business, obviously had not been reading the dirt sheet, and obviously this is a time way before the internet because I'm old. This was the joy of professional wrestling captured in a moment. The Warrior was back, it was going to be great, surely he'd be world champion again at some point. Think of the feuds you could have. Bret Hart was just coming up, Shawn Michaels wasn't too far behind, The Undertaker. Hogan was obviously departing the company the following year, the following summer in 1993, so that led Warrior to be the guy to lead the new generation through to success and glory for years to come. Only that didn't happen because Ultimate Warrior being the Ultimate Warrior, he was gone from the company barely 6 months later. But still, we will always have WrestleMania 8.